This is the Wildly Wonderful podcast, Wide Open Spaces with Ilise, aka the Fiery Redhead, where we get raw, edgy, and not so politically correct. You can listen to this podcast anywhere you love listening to your favorite podcast. Go to wideopenspaceswithilise.com or go to your social media, like, love, and follow. Now let's listen, let's talk, and let's evolve together. Welcome to episode number 192. You are not your grief. First, I'd like to shout out to 4 countries that I am going to be visiting in the next 2 weeks, and how exciting it was for me to go look at my analytics and to see that one of these countries was my number 1 listenership for episode number 191. So let's start out with the United Kingdom. I will be in London and Southampton, England. So I'm excited about that. Thank you, the United Kingdom, for being number 1 last month, which is quite exciting. You beat the USA. USA has always been number 1. Then it's Sweden, which I will be visiting. Denmark. I will be in Copenhagen, and I forgot the other place. And Finland. And I'm also going to a place called Estonia, but I didn't have any listeners from there. But I'll give them a shout out. So thank you so much for listening to me. I'm coming to you, and I'm very excited about that. Well, if you are a loyal listener, you've missed me. I've been gone for about 2.5 weeks. And maybe you're wondering, what happened to me? A lot happened to me. Now, episode number 191, completely coincidental, was about grieving. Well, since I have published that podcast, probably now 3 weeks ago, my mom passed away. Unexpectedly. My mom was living with me, high functioning, driving herself, cooking for herself, cleaning up after all of us, still being a mom, living with us for over 4 years after my dad passed away. It was completely unexpected. She was in the hospital for a week. It felt like Groundhog's Day every day. My daughters and I and my husband would get there at a certain time and be at the hospital listening to all the doctors and nurses and whatnot. She had a kidney stone that blocked the flow of her urine, which created her to become septic. And, well, it just went down the hill from there. I don't need to get into all the gory details, but she passed away. After a week, we took her off life support, which was her wishes, and it really sucked. And so I wanted to give you a podcast before I went away because this is what I do. It's my job. And I took unexpectedly time off with going to the hospital and then planning a funeral and grieving and still grieving. But there's a thought that kept coming up in my head over the past week and a half since she's passed. And that is, you are not your grief. And I have to tell myself this because right now I feel my entire existence, my entire body, from head to toe, is about my grief. And I realize that I have to somehow separate myself to function, to move forward, to not become stuck, to not fall into the habits that when you're sad and depressed you can do, like lying in bed and making the room really dark and putting the covers over your head. And I did do that once or twice in the very, very beginning. I thought somehow while she was in the hospital that I could have magical thinking and make her open her eyes and make her talk to me. I wished for it, I prayed for it, but I knew somewhere deep down in my gut I was never going to get that. We all grieve different things in our life, as I discussed in episode 191. But what happens when the grief consumes you? I've seen it happen with clients. I've seen it happen personally with friends and loved ones. How the grief can be everything that you are. And nowhere in your world does anything else or is anything else allowed to seep in. So how do we get to the point where we are not our grief? And ultimately, it's a conscious decision to say to yourself, I am not my grief. Not everything about me is my grief. Now, for me, my mom lived with me. My dad passed away over 4 years ago, which is why she lived with us, I mentioned before. And so I love my dad. I miss my dad every day. I cried often. But it was different because she lived with me. And everywhere in my house is my mom. So how do I separate myself from my grief? This morning, I had a huge pile of clothes that had been piling up because literally I would throw those clothes off from the hospital, put something on the next day, come home, shower, eat, and the same thing would be for an entire week. So I had this huge pile of clothes that I need to get washed, and I carried them all the way to the laundry room. But on the way to the laundry room is my mom's hallway, her picture window, her bedroom, and all her little things. And she's in the laundry room, her detergent, her everything. I allowed her to kind of take over those parts of the house because she was such a neat freak. And I knew it meant more to her to be able to control how things were set up in those areas, the kitchen, the laundry room. I let her have it. But now, some things I can't even find because only she knew where they were. But everything is set up that way. So how do you move through it? I'm going to be honest with you. This podcast is not about the fiery redhead, Ilise, who gives you knowledge from my professional experience working with clients in the psychiatric aspects of life, or my insight, or my empathy, or my experience in the world with other people and their mental health issues, or their stress issues, or their anxiety issues. This is the fiery redhead sitting very sad with you, not feeling so fiery, trying to get through one of the hardest things in life, and to figure out, how am I not my grief? If you are somebody who has recent grief, or you've been grieving for a very long time and you have tips for me, yes, I'm asking for tips. For myself, go to my social media, leave me a message. Go to my website, you can leave me a message there, or you can comment when you listen, after you listen to this podcast. Just because I'm a therapist doesn't mean I'm like Glinda the Good Witch and I can make everything perfect and know every answer to everything, because I'm still evolving and learning myself. And in part of my evolution is the loss of my mom and me trying to navigate that. I struggle with a lot of things besides just the house. That feeling when I wake up every morning and open my eyes. and realize my life is drastically different. I realize when my dog is looking for her because she fed him. Her, sorry. She fed her. I don't know where the him came from. Just shows you how emotional I am. She fed her every day, and the dog looked forward to it and gave my mom kisses. And so it just, you understand if you're in this type of grief or you've had it, how much it weaves through everything in your life. I go out to walk the dog. Her car's in the driveway. I can't avoid, which sometimes we can do for a while, until our brain is really ready to process. That can happen. But it is going to happen for me. Unfortunately, about Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 5 days after my mom during my mom was in the hospital, I was supposed to go on a family vacation to Europe for 22 days. My mom was staying home with the dog. We had a dog walker, all that stuff. Well, obviously, that never came to pass. If you know me, I love traveling. Traveling is my therapy. I mean, truly my therapy. I don't live for travel. I did when I was younger because I just hated, I guess, what I was doing at the time. And those were my things I looked forward to. Now travel is my therapy, and how much I learn the history, taking in the people and the environment. And as I was sitting with my husband and my two girls have been so amazing. It really is something to see your kids be the adults in the room when you're weak and you're fragile, and they're mourning too, but yet something in them rises up to take care of their mom. It really is a beautiful thing how they've supported me, taken some of the things that might be normal stressors off of me. But as we were sitting just in this sadness, we get out, we try to get out of the house. When I get out, I have emotional moments, but I feel better. One of the last things my mom said to me before they intubated her was, "What are you going to do?" And she was referring to my trip because she would not want that canceled because of her. She was like, "What are you going to do about the puppy? Who's going to feed the puppy?" These were the last things before they put a tube down her throat that she was thinking about, still taking care of everything. She never knew we canceled our trip. We would tell her we were taking care of the dog. But in those moments after she passed and spending time together after family and the funeral and all that entailed, we decided we were going to go away. Me and my two girls. Now, my husband, you can feel bad for him. He's got a little bit of a back injury, so he wouldn't be able to go with us, but he still wanted us to go because travel is my therapy. Will it be the same as any other travel? Absolutely not. Will there be tears and sadness? 1,000%. But it will give me a chance to step away from my home and everything in it that reminds me of her, to give my brain a break. How do you give your brain a break? And some of you might be saying, well, that's great. She can afford a trip. I can't. I understand that. This isn't about me bragging or anything like that. This is something that I work hard for, and it's just one of my priorities for me in life. And for others, I understand that it may not be the priority and other things take precedent. And that's what I'm trying to discuss with you is how can you become everything but your grief? To be not to be your grief, to not let your grief consume you. What coping mechanism can you do? What can you be your therapy? Separate from sitting with a therapist or a doctor, what can be your therapy? If I'm saying travel is my therapy, what can be your therapy in your grieving process so that it doesn't become everything that you are? Now, I am very well aware that the minute I step back in my house, I will be sad. She will be everywhere. And I will have a little bit of that starting over again. But what I'm hoping for is to lighten my heart a little bit, to relieve my stress and anxiety a little bit, and to give my brain a break. So when I come back, I feel like I can tackle some of the things that we need to do when someone passes away. And so this is my grieving process. Another thing that I went through, and this is really just me sitting with you, my listener, not being a therapist, not being so empathetic, not trying to give you all these life lessons or coping mechanisms. I'm giving you me, raw, holding back and fighting back the tears. Not because I'm afraid to cry with you, just because you won't understand me if I'm crying. And I know that this new journey that I'm on will be different, will never be the same. A light has gone in my life. And so when my mom took her last breath and I was with her in the room, there was something beautiful, I guess, if you can find beauty in death, that occurred. While my sister-in-law and my husband and myself were in the room, and they took the tubes out and they made her comfortable, I stood next to my mom, and my mom loved physical touch. And I'm not a touchy-feely person, but she loved physical touch. So I stood there, and I rubbed her forehead, and I played with her hair, and I talked to her as you could see her body trying to breathe. And I stood there for a good 15 minutes, leaning over her, caressing her, talking to her, telling her it's okay to go. And my sister-in-law said to me, "Why don't you sit down for a minute?" And I'm like, "Okay." And when I sat down, no exaggeration, the minute I moved away from my mom and sat down, she took one more breath. And then there was no more. And I immediately said, "Oh my God, she waited for me to walk away. She gave me one last gift. She didn't want to take her last breath with me standing there. She did her last motherly thing for me." There's so much beauty in that. And that was everything that my mom was. I've had to come to the reality that my life will never be the same. I will never be the same. The minute she took that last breath, my life as I knew it was gone. I don't mean that in a hopeless and helpless way. I mean it in that part of my life. From the moment I took my first breath to her taking her last is over. It's memories, it's pictures, it's thoughts. And with her last breath, who I was ceased to exist. And I needed somehow to start this new life without my mom or my dad. Different. I needed to feel physically different. Because in the heart and the head, all I feel is pain. Well, I wanted to, change myself somehow immediately to be different because I knew I was never going to be that same person. And how could I make myself different? So I went to a tattoo parlor the day after my mom passed. And I got a tattoo. We found a card that my mom had given me, which I always keep all the cards. My mom had given me when my dad was alive. And it said, "All our love forever, Mom and Dad, XOXOXO." So I got that tattooed on me. I went to this all-female tattoo place in Boca Raton, Florida, where they specialize in fine writing. And I got this tattoo and another one. That was something I had been planning in the past. My girls did the same. They had a card that said from Grandma and Grandpa, and they had tattooed on their arms. And my husband got something totally different. That wasn't enough for me. And we went back there for my other daughter a week later to get this color tattoo. And while I was there, I did something that I've always wanted to do. I never did it because my dad wouldn't have liked it. I think my mom would have at this point, but I was a little chicken. I mean, if she accepted tattoos, which they thought were horrible way back when, if she loved my tattoo that I had already gotten a year ago, I knew she wouldn't care about that. So I did something I've always wanted to do. I felt like I was too old, but I feel like I'm young at heart and in my head. And I just did it and got my nose pierced. And I'm in my 50s and I first got my nose pierced and my first tattoos in my 50s, but I got these two new tattoos and my nose pierced. And what they represent for me is the chapters of my life that now come after the loss of my parents. By putting them with me always with the handwriting, by getting my nose pierced, this is the next chapter of me. Some of those rebel things that I kind of just kept under the surface a little bit, I think are really going to start to come out. My mom had a hard time dealing with me starting to do that in the past 4.5 years, like going to South Africa on safari, and she would see all these horror stories. I mean, there were some things where I was really starting to come into my own and made her nervous. So now I think I'll be doing a lot more of those things because I don't have to, I know she will not be worried anymore of those things. And so I am not my grief. I am not my grief. My grief does not define me. And that's the message I want to give you today through the pain that I've recently gone through and will continue, will be there for the rest of my life. It will change its shape, its colors, the way it looks, the way it feels. I know that from my dad being gone over 4 years, how that changes. And I know this will change. I'm doing work, and I just got the book Motherless Daughters, and I'm going to read about that, and I'm really going to try to create this chapter of after. Make it not about my grief, because I am not my grief, and you are not your grief. The only time you are your grief is when we allow it to become everything that we are. And that's where the fight inside of you must rise to the occasion. Mine's coming up slowly. As you heard, the tears are still there, no matter how hard I try not to, because I'm human and I feel. And though I'm grieving and I have the pain of the grief, I am not my grief. It is not everything that I am, and it is not everything that you are. And we know that we all will grieve someone or something in our lives. It's inevitable. It's the circle of life. And if you have not experienced grief yet, you're kind of in that little blessed bubble. Unfortunately, my daughters at a young age experience grief. Some of us don't experience it till much later in our lives. And for some reason, I think that makes it even harder, because you've had that bubble that's protected you. When the bubble is popped, you get all wet. You get all wet with your tears, your sadness, and you don't feel protected anymore because of this pain that you feel. But you are not your grief. Your grief is not everything you are. You are still you, but you look different. The chapters of your life will be different. For me, I came right out of the gates and started with the tattoo and the nose ring. I am now physically, on the surface, different. It's a reminder to me when I look at the tattoo, when I look at my nose ring, I am different now. My life is not the same. I've marked it with these momentous things getting done to my body. It gives my brain this concrete reminder to look at myself and to notice how I'm changing and how I'm different and how I will evolve differently than I thought I would. Because to be honest, my mom was 81, and like I said, I thought she had a good 10 years. I mean, the lady was everything. The only thing that was changing was her body. But she was with it, and she was able to do things, and I just never had the time to start to think about or see her start to decline. And so I just thought I had more time. But you know what? We never know. And in the end, as sad as I am, I always had the thoughts, what would it be like as she wouldn't be able to drive anymore? Wouldn't be able to walk without assistance? Maybe not be able to take care of her physical needs? What would that be like? I had those thoughts because she lived with me. We would become her caretakers. And so as sad as it is for all of us that we're all still young and we don't have her, and even the hospice doctor that came in and asked, she's 81, she's young. I have to embrace the fact that the powers that be knew that phase of her life would not be the way she would want to have lived, and probably would have been extremely depressed and sad. And I've seen it because I worked with geriatric patients for years, and I've seen it and I've heard it when they've lost a spouse, and then their bodies start to change and they're not self-sufficient anymore. And I have to believe that her fate was to not have the end of her life like that. And though that would have given me time and my kids time and my husband time and my brother time and the rest of my family time, that time for her would have made her very depressed. And so I'm sad that I don't know if she knew she was passing. I'm sad that she didn't get to say last things to us that she might have wanted to say. I'm sad that there's unended things and exciting things that we were going to be doing together that will never happen. I have to embrace the fact that she went praying peacefully and that high functioning, physically functioning, never knowing what it would be like to start to decompensate. And so I have to take that and try to embrace that as a gift for myself. That was the last gift she got, is not to suffer and not to kind of just, in her mind, it would be wasting away, being confined, not being able to go out on her own to her Costco trips and her Walmart trips. And so she did all that till the very end. And I have to say that as she looks down on me, that she would be saying, it's okay. And it took me a while. I mean, she's only been gone for a week and a half. I think I've done a lot of good work, even being able to say what I just said to you. And what I want you to take from that is the lesson in your grieving. Look how you grow. Look how you change. Look how you evolve, even in the concept of your grief and the stages of grief. Look how you evolve and change. But throughout all that process, or maybe you're in that place that I was a week and a half ago where we had to let go, and maybe you're in that place, or maybe it's been 10 years. You are not your grief. Your grief will definitely change you. Maybe in some good and maybe in some bad and always some sad, but it will change you. If you allow it to evolve with you, not to become it, for it to be a part of your life story, I think that's the biggest gift that we can give to those who have passed, is to take all the beauty that they gave us. And I'm talking even with your pets, all the beauty that they gave us. And to know that if they were looking down or are looking down, whatever you believe, saying, you did good. You did good. Because ultimately, they would want you to move on. They would want you to live your life the way they lived their lives. And just like in that last motherly thing that my mom did for me, not wanting to take her last breath as I was caressing her and standing right over her, she did that last gift for me. There's such beauty in that. And so what gift can I give her? To live my life. To go on that trip that was canceled. It looks different. It's not the same trip. It's a much more subdued trip than what the other one was going to be. But that's what she would want me to do. And there may be people who will look at me and go, she's going on a frickin' trip? Like, really? People can do that because then they don't understand the true healing process that one must take when grieving. And it looks different for all of us. And so when I'm not grieving or things are sad, travel is my therapy. So while I am grieving and sad, why shouldn't travel be my therapy? Don't listen to others. Their grief journey is extremely different than yours. Or maybe they've never grieved before and they're looking at you like, stop crying already. Stop being so sad. Move on. I had somebody recently tell me, they keep telling me to move on. I talked about it in my last podcast, I believe. And that person said, how can I move on? You can change, you can evolve, but you don't ever have to move away from the love that you had for that person and the gap that's left in your life. You can't just move on bopping happily. Okay, they're gone now, let's move on. You're different, you've changed. You're not the same person. The minute they took their last breath, you are not the same person. So if you have those people in your life saying those things to you, step away, take a break. They don't understand the true grief process. And maybe they've grieved and they're still stuck in it and they're just like there with it. They're not going to be helpful to you. What I want you to continuously say to yourself, if you've lost a long time ago, you've lost recently, you're about to lose, or you've never lost, when you're in this process, you must say to yourself, like I keep saying to myself, I am not my grief. I am not my grief. I can cry. I can be sad. But that doesn't mean that's everything about me. And people have a hard time looking at people who are grieving because they feel that when they see them in that emotional state, that they're not mentally healthy. And there's such a misconception about that makes you weak if you're still crying a month later or 2 months later. You're sad. You always will have that sadness in you. And that's sad to say, but it's life. It's how you take that sadness and how you look at it and try to take the life of the person or the animal or whatever it is of loss. And what would they want for you? And I think that's where I'll leave you today. I will be gone. I will be doing, hopefully, if I am emotionally up to it, I will be doing short, possibly interviews or short podcasts from my trip in the different places that I'm visiting. Look for a lot of videos and pictures and social media that I'll be posting to share some of the places that I am going on this healing journey for myself and my 2 girls, and enjoying their company and us 3 supporting each other. And hopefully come back just stronger to deal with the things that I have to do to take care of my mom's business and things. You are not your grief. Your grief does not need to consume your entire life. Remember those people or those pets looking back at you and saying, you've got this. Live your life. Live your life like I lived my life. And take that message with yourselves today. I want to say a little note before I end here. Thank you for listening to my emotional side. This podcast evolved from me doing years ago, season 5, of doing kind of like therapy sessions through COVID. And it's morphed into something so much more. And it's gotten to the point where I was able to do this with you, whether you're a new listener. No, my podcasts are not always this sad. Or you're a listener who's been with me and you know that they're not like this. They're motivational, they're uplifting. I give you great knowledge to use in your life. I share my personal stories, etc. And so I thank you for allowing me to have a little therapy sesh with you today and be able to outwardly express the little work that I've done since my mom has passed and the direction that I'm going in and how I've already changed myself into something different. So I want to say thank you again for allowing me to share my thoughts today. Thank you for joining me today at Wide Open Spaces with Ilise. Remember, positive thoughts always create positive energy. Go out and explore all those wide open spaces in your world. Please like, love, and share. Go to all the different social media. You can find me there. And well, until I'm somewhere in Europe, in Scandinavia, you will listen to me there, doing some fun things, I hope, and some emotional healing. And until then, my friends, ciao.